These are the rules and regulations for purchasing airsoft guns in the UK in 2025. So we have explained these laws here on the channel before, but it was the second video we ever made. It wasn't the best quality and there was some really annoying music in the background. So we're going to cover them again in even more detail. We're going to be covering the laws for purchasing airsoft rifles and pistols in the UK, as well as airsoft gun ownership in the UK. Please note that all of these regulations aren't just made up by us here at BZ. They're enforced by stores all across the UK, and they apply to online purchases and physical in-store purchases, like at the BZ shop here in Teesside. Now, if you're watching this because you're interested in buying a realistic replica firearm, but it's not for the purposes of playing airsoft, skip to the time at the bottom of the screen. First up, let's cover the laws for buying airsoft replica firearms. Here in the UK, there are two categories of airsoft gun: realistic imitation firearms like this, and non-realistic imitation firearms like this, more commonly referred to as two-tone guns. To purchase a non-realistic imitation firearm or two-tone gun, all you have to be is a UK resident and to be at least 18 years of age. If you're under the age of 18, don't worry, because it is still perfectly legal for a parent or guardian to purchase a non-realistic imitation firearm for you, as long as they are a UK resident and at least 18 years of age. If you're looking to purchase something more realistic looking, like this KWA E4 in black, you'll need what is known as a valid defense, but we'll explain that in more detail later in the video. But first, let's cover what counts as a two-tone gun. For an airsoft gun to be counted as a non-realistic replica, it needs to be at least 51% of a non-military / non-realistic colour. By realistic colours, we are referring to black, tan, olive, drab, chrome, bronze, and even gold. Non-realistic are basically colours that you wouldn't expect to see on a real firearm, which the gov.uk website lists as bright green, red, blue, pink, purple, orange, yellow, and transparent. So just as an example, we've got these two pistols. This one here has a fully red slide on the top, whereas this one only has red accents on it. This one with the red slide, any UK resident aged 18 or over can purchase this because it meets the over 50% non-realistic colour requirement. Whereas since this pistol only has red accents, the main dominant colour is still black, a realistic colour, so you would need a valid defence in order to purchase it. But what if the main colour of the gun doesn't match those that were listed by the government website? Say you've got a gun that's a dark shade of blue, like this combat machine from G&G Armament, or it's something like rainbow, like in our CTM TAC AP builds. Well, in these circumstances, the UK government website does state that the general test of whether it can be distinguished from a real firearm should be used. Basically, if it couldn't pass as a real gun, then it's probably a two-tone. Every store here in the UK will have a range of pre-two-tone pistols and airsoft rifles for you to purchase, but if there's a specific airsoft replica that you're after and it isn't available in two-tone colours, don't worry, because most stores offer a custom two-toning service. Here at BZ, we offer an in-house two-toning service on all of the replicas that we sell. So if you're after a certain gun and you don't have a valid defense, don't worry, you can purchase it from BZ and we will two-tone it for you in the colour of your choice from as little as £10. Now, a question we've been getting asked a lot lately, you may have seen them on the BZ YouTube channel before, on our social media pages, but do custom pistol builds count as two-tone or not? Basically, the same rules apply to purchasing any custom build as they do to purchasing any other airsoft pistol. So if the finished build at time of purchase is at least 51% non-realistic colours, then you don't need a valid defense to purchase it. However, if the main colour is a realistic colour, like black for instance, like on this black and red pistol that we're showing off on screen right now, then you still need a valid defense in order to purchase it. If you're still unsure and you want more classification on what does and doesn't count as a two-tone gun, please find a linked video in our description called What Counts as a Two-Tone. But what if you want to purchase something that looks a bit more like this? Well, let's move on to realistic imitation firearms. In the UK, to purchase a realistic imitation firearm, you need to be at least 18 years of age and have what is known as a valid defense. This is basically a way of confirming that you're purchasing the replica for all the right reasons. So let's go over all the various forms of valid defense, both the airsoft related ones and the non-airsoft related ones, and how you can obtain one. If you're buying an airsoft gun for the purposes of actually playing airsoft, the most common form of valid defense is known as UKARA, which basically just proves that you're a regular airsoft player. Now, there are other airsoft valid defences that are very similar to UKARA, like British Airsoft Club and UKASA, but we're going to focus on UKARA because it is the most common one. But for more information on the other forms of valid defence, please check the links in our description. But how on earth do you get a UKARA? Well, it's pretty simple. Step 1, find a UKARA registered airsoft site in your local area. You can do this by going on the UKARA website or by contacting local sites directly. Step 2, once you've found your preferred airsoft site, you need to play at least 3 times at the same site over the course of about 2 months, with your third game taking place at least 56 days after your first game. If an airsoft site operates at multiple locations, say they've got one in Edinburgh, one in Newcastle and one in Teesside, then you can play any combination of those sites and they'll still count towards your UKARA as long as you meet all of the other requirements. For these 3 games, you can either use your own equipment if you already have some at home, or you can rent equipment from the sites themselves. Almost every airsoft site in the UK has rental packages available, so don't worry, you don't need to purchase a 2-ton gun in the meantime while you're waiting for your UKARA. You can just rent their equipment from them. And to be clear, this is something we've been asked a few times. You don't need to be in a group in order to play. You can just turn up as a solo player at walk-on days and it will count towards your UKARA. Now, you're free to play airsoft as many times as you want in the space of those 2 months, but please note you will not be eligible for UKARA until those first 56 days are up. And even after that, you will need to play an extra game after those 56 days in order to become UKARA eligible, as long as you've played 2 games previously. So your third game needs to take place at least 56 days after your first game. Once that third game has been played, congrats, you're eligible for UKARA. You don't need to apply for this yourself. You actually apply for it through the site you've been playing at. Just speak to them and they'll do all the work for you. Once your application goes through, you'll be given a UKARA number which you can use to purchase any realistic imitation firearm you want from any store across the UK. So there is a bit of effort in order to obtain an airsoft valid defence here in the UK, but it does give you the opportunity to try airsoft a few times without committing any real money to buying your own kit. Your UKARA number will be valid for 12 months from the date of registration and then it will expire. But don't worry, when it does expire, you'll only need to revalidate it if you're going to be purchasing more realistic imitation firearms. You don't need to have a valid UKARA in order to own an airsoft gun or use an airsoft gun. It's only for purchasing. Revalidating your UKARA is very easy. All you have to do is to speak to the site that you've been playing at recently, and as long as you're still a regular player there, they'll validate your UKARA for you. Another form of valid defence for airsofters is by signing up to a site membership at one of your local airsoft venues. Please keep in mind, if you do go down the site membership route over UKARA or one of the equivalents, that this will restrict you from what airsoft shops you can purchase from. It's down to every airsoft shop's own discretion which site memberships they accept as a valid defence. So here at BZ, we only really accept memberships from sites that we work closely with or that are in the local area. But if you are playing at the same site regularly, it might be worth investing in a site membership anyway, because you'll get discount on your entry fees and you might even get a discount at the on-site shop as well. A question that we get asked a lot is that if someone is under the age of 18, can someone apply for a valid defence on your behalf? And the answer is no. No matter how much of a regular player you are, if you're under the age of 18, you cannot apply for a valid defence and nobody can apply on your behalf either. Well, here in the UK, there are no regulations at all when it comes to gifting an airsoft gun to somebody, regardless of age and regardless of what colour the gun is. So as mentioned earlier in the video, if a teenager is watching who has just gotten into airsoft, but you're under the age of 18, a parent or guardian of legal age can purchase an airsoft toy replica for you, but unless they have a valid defence, they will be limited to non-realistic airsoft guns like this one. And the only way for them to obtain a valid defence would be to play airsoft regularly. But what are the other forms of valid defence here in the UK, ones that aren't related to airsoft? Well, there are a few other legal reasons why you can purchase an airsoft replica here in the UK, which include being a member of a reenactment society, being a museum curator for the purposes of film or TV production, and for civil service use, e.g. firearms training. These are all judged on a case-by-case basis, so if you are interested in purchasing realistic imitation firearms and you think one of these reasons applies to you, drop us an email, info@bztactical.co.uk, or you can give us a call as well. Please be aware that cosplay is not a form of valid defence that we accept here at BZ, and most shops around the UK will not accept it either. Right, moving on to airsoft ownership laws. So when it comes to actually owning an airsoft gun here in the UK, there are absolutely no restrictions at all. You don't need a licence to own one, you don't even need a valid defence to own one. all of the regulations only apply to the actual purchasing of an airsoft gun. This is why you don't need a form of valid defence in order to be gifted a realistic airsoft gun here in the UK, but you do need one in order to purchase it. So once you own an airsoft gun, you don't need to get yourself a license, you don't need to be carrying a proof of valid defence with you at all times. You'll only need a valid defence if you are continuing to purchase more realistic looking airsoft guns. So once you own an airsoft gun, you don't need to get yourself a license, you don't need to be carrying a proof of valid defence with you at all times. You'll only need a valid defence if you are continuing to purchase more realistic looking airsoft guns. However, just because there are no regulations for owning an airsoft gun, there are of course laws about using one responsibly. Unfortunately, some recent news stories have shown that there are people still out there who don't know how to handle an imitation firearm, so here are some vital tips that you must follow. If you have an airsoft gun, treat it as if it is the real thing, regardless of what size it is, what colour it is, what it looks like. If you wouldn't do it with a real gun, then don't do it with an airsoft gun, or any type of firearm for that matter. So that means do not carry your airsoft gun around exposed in public no matter what. The moment that it leaves your house, leaves an airsoft site or leaves an airsoft store, it must be concealed inside of a bag or a case, or at the very least the packaging that it came in. Even if you're keeping your gun inside your vehicle, whether that's on a seat or in the boot, keep it concealed at all times. We have heard of instances where people are keeping their airsoft guns not in a case or a bag, they've just got it laid on the back seat of their car. Passers-by have walked past, spotted the gun in the car, and they've contacted the police because they don't know it's a replica and they're assuming the worst. So do not do this, do not take any chances. So when you invest in your first airsoft gun, make sure that you invest in a good quality rifle bag or hard case as well at the same time. This applies to you regardless of whether you've got a realistic looking airsoft gun or a two-tone gun. Keep it concealed and treat it as if it was the real thing. One of the questions we get asked most about owning an airsoft gun is if the airsoft gun is two-tone, once you own it, are you allowed to paint over it to make it look more realistic? The answer is a flat out no. Even if you do get yourself a form of valid defence, it is still illegal to paint a two-tone gun in realistic colours, as this is classed as manufacturing a realistic imitation firearm. Now, while nobody has actually been convicted of this here in the UK at time of recording, it is punishable by a prison sentence if you do get caught. This also applies to taking your two-tone gun to an airsoft shop in order to be painted. Just don't take the risk, guys. If you want a realistic imitation airsoft gun, then get yourself a valid defence first. And that's about it. We promise it's not as complicated as it may seem, but if you've still got some questions that you need answering, please do feel free to leave them in the comments and we'll do our best at answering them for you. And of course, if you want more information on anything airsoft related, you can leave them in a comment, or you can drop us an email or give us a call, or you can even visit us in our shop here in Teesside, North East England. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. Remember to subscribe to BZ Tactical on YouTube for more airsoft content. And as always, thank you for watching, guys.